Negotiator Kurt Campion, Employee Organization, Galt Police Officers Association. And number 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, one potential case.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. There was no reportable action on any of the items out of closed session this evening.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmembers Payne. Here. Claire.
Here.
Haynes. Meredith.
Here.
Shelton.
Here. Before we rise for a moment of silence, I would just like for you to contemplate thinking about Bob Biederman that is not in good health. And I think several of us do know that he was one of our council members and mayors for many years. So I would like to ask that you would include him in your prayers, please. If you would please rise and remain standing for the flag salute by the Cub Scout Pack 84 Den 4.
Attention. The audience, please rise. Color guard advance. Color guard post colors. Salute. Please repeat with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard dismiss.
Thank you, Scouts. Yes, we have a video statement. Liz?
This meeting of the Galt City Council is being videotaped in its entirety and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel, on the Comcast and SureWest cable system. Tonight's meeting can be seen on Channel 14 and will also be webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv this Friday and Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. A VHS copy is also available for checkout from any library branch. Members of the audience wishing to address council should fill out a speaker identification form and give it to the clerk. Please speak into the microphone when addressing council and state your name for the record.
Thank you. Agenda approval, additions and/or deletions, are there any?
Mr. Mayor, staff has none.
D4.
D4?
D4.
D4.
D.
I'd also like to ask that we move up item N7 under Vice Mayor Payne's comments to follow after the consent calendar, because I know we have some people here that would like to speak on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay. Consent. I'm sorry. Do you have any comment? Do we have comment? comments from the public.
Okay. Under Government Code, Section 54954.3, members of the audience may address council on any item of interest to the public or on any agenda item before or during consideration of the item. Please fill out a speaker sheet located on the table inside the entrances to the council chambers and forward the completed speaker sheet to the city clerk prior to addressing the council. We request that you state whether you live within the Galt city limits or the county area. A maximum of 5 minutes is allowed for each speaker. Tracy Gross?
Hi, I'm Tracy Gross. I live in the city. I just wanted to thank the city staff for answering my questions that I presented last meeting. I appreciate the effort and whatever time it took you guys. Also, I want to real quickly, I know it's early, but I want to start reminding the city that Stand Down for Sacramento County is in September. I have a feeling that this year we're going to have more in need than we have before, and we usually service around 400 homeless veterans. I want to start collecting clothes. If anybody has anything as they're cleaning out their closets that they'd like to get rid of. I'm looking for men's clothes. Larger men's clothes are greatly needed. Also, good things. Councilman Claire donated quite a few suits last year, which were used when the guys went out on job interviews and such, and those were really helpful. So if you have anything, let me know, and I'll be reminding you guys probably once a month between now and September. Also, I just heard that San Joaquin County is doing their second Stand Down. It's actually the end of this month. It's on a weekday. Theirs is a little different than ours. They only do it one day. They have a volunteer meeting tomorrow night in Stockton. You can Google San Joaquin County Stand Down and get the information. They only serviced about 140 last year. Like I said, they're brand new, so if you guys want to get involved in that, this is a great time to do it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, Dan Jimenez?
Can I wait until the subject matter of limiting total amount allocated for public comment?
Yes.
Can I wait till then, or
Yes.
do I have to do it then?
No, you just had public comment on your form, so that's why I called you, but I will call you under that item.
Okay.
Okay, you're welcome. John Slaughterback?
Well, you already know my name, and my name's John Slaughterback, and I live in Galt. I'd just like to say that Greg told me, he said I should get a hobby. I'd like to, but I have things that bother me. I have kind of a hard time having a hobby when I have these problems. But one other thing, too, I'd like to ask, there's been talk about it. When Del Webb wanted to go to regional, staff had a lot to say against it. They spoke up. Now that they want to annex and go out here and build, they're not saying anything, and there's comments around about what the reason is. You know, I don't understand myself why staff isn't involved now, and yet they were involved earlier. It makes it look like we'd like to go out there and build, have more money coming into the city coffers and more raises and so on. I don't know, but it makes you wonder. I would like to talk a little bit about this. We paid $400,000 for it. It's a feasibility study the city did. It's paid $400,000. It was to find the best option, recommendation for the city's wastewater treatment plant. We just spend $400,000. You would think we would look at it and go by it a little bit. I'd like to read a paragraph out of a couple of pages here. The existing reclamation area that surrounds the Galt wastewater treatment plant provides a valuable buffer against encroachment towards the wastewater treatment plant. This is a distinct feature and benefit of the reclamation area that should be maintained into the future. Development, encroachment towards wastewater treatment facilities generally results in increased efforts of capital investments toward odor control, noise reduction, improved screening, to reduce visual effects, increase security measures, installation of other site improvements. Another paragraph on another page. Under all of the potential compliance options being considered, the city should continue irrigation on existing city-owned reclamation properties for the following reasons. Irrigation will provide valuable operational flexibility. Leasing the site to a private landowner manager is a potential source of income. In other words, they're saying the land you own, you can lease it back out and there'll be a potential for income. These properties provide a buffer against encroachment toward the wastewater treatment plant, and they may be needed in the future for long-term biosolids applications. Given the information presented in this chapter and in Chapter 6, the city should make a determination as to whether it's worthwhile to continue investigating Sacramento River discharge alternative. They're saying that one of these days we're either going to have to upgrade higher or we're going to have to go to the Sacramento River for discharge. We're talking about $50 million going to the Sacramento River discharge. And some of one firm has already stated that we should maybe have considered membrane filter technology because we may have another upgrade in the near future. And I have no doubt that we're going to see a lot of problems in the future. I really can't understand people talking like there's no problems out there. It doesn't even make sense to me. And even in this book that three of you have, you were the ones that voted this through. You should know what's in that book. And it states right in there what you need to do. So I'm really confused on why we say there's no problems out there. There's a lot of problems out there. Now my time's almost gone now. It just don't make sense. 5 minutes just don't last long. Well, it looks like I'll be here next week, or 2 weeks from now. All right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Okay, Richard Walters? N7? Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Information consent calendar. If you would read those items off, please.
Okay. Number 1, approval of the minutes of the special and regular council meetings of January 6, 2009. Number 2, approval of the City of Galt warrants. Number 3, approval for an amended lease for the 800 megahertz radio upgrade project. Number 4, which was pulled for discussion, is the traffic control improvement update. And number 5, surplus vehicle and inventory reduction.
Okay. How about we discuss D4? Is that okay with council?
Yeah.
And then we can bring them all back, okay? So on the update, do you want to hear from staff, or I'll just turn that, it was your item, right?
On D4?
Yes.
Yes, I asked to have that one pulled for several reasons. One is I'm hoping that, considering the current economic conditions, that Galt will endeavor to be competitive with other cities. And whenever I see something about raising fees, it makes me want to ask questions about how that would affect us as far as being competitive to attract new business and new development to our town. On this one in particular, I was wondering, it seemed like we're asking to do a study to come up with fees, and it seems totally, or maybe not totally clear as to what we're going to be covering with these fees. For example, there's one, the last bullet item, which I've discussed with Greg already, is just miscellaneous widening of the road and things like that. So I guess I would just like a better explanation about this whole item. Also, its relationship to the funding, the study. What's the relationship to it to a a total financial package, if any, before we take our general plan to LAFCO or to get it approved. So if we could just start there, and like I said, I had questions about some of the items that were listed, how we were going to come up with a fee on those when we're not really sure, you know, what we're covering there.
Let me go ahead and start. And then Marty Sandway is here with OmniMeans. They're the ones that prepared the original TCIP Northeast Area Improvement Program, and they're the ones that done all the updates, and they're the ones that we're recommending Council award a contract to tonight. The Traffic Capital Impact Program and the Northeast Area Public Facilities Program are both fee structures that were developed by the city a number of years ago that identified certain select projects that would be paid for by developers in conjunction with growth. These are basically major infrastructure projects. It's a planning document. At that time, Marty and this company made up estimates based upon anticipated projects and their descriptions. There were some estimates as far as what was going to be in it, like at that time the Central Galt Interchange, Twin Cities. It's their best estimate at that time as to what projects would be included. The idea is you then spread the cost of those improvements over the current land that's available, and you come up with a prerequisite fee based upon the development, so development covers the own cost of its own growth. This program was last updated in 2006 to basically take the then projects, update them relative to construction cost, and then we divided by the remaining land bank. At that time, if you recall, some of the fees were fairly high, and council ultimately adopted a fee program that was not fully funded relative to the commercial aspect. It created what we call a hole in the programming. When we did that back in 2006, we knew coming up with the general plan, we're going to have two major changes in the philosophy of this funding program. One is, with the new general plan, we're going to have many, many more projects included in this program. These are basically backroad infrastructure. The other key component was the new land. We're going to have several thousands of acres of new land coming in, and all those areas are going to help pay for all these new projects. And so you mentioned this being a fee, or raising fees. This is not, the intent is not here to raise fees, which is typically something we might do. This is an update. It's anticipated that the fees could very likely go down because we'll have so many more property owners, so many more developers actually contributing to the cost of the projects. In terms of the list, Marty has worked with city staff and looking over the general plan and come up with not every single improvement, but the majority of the major infrastructure improvements, some of which were listed in the staff report, but he couldn't list every single one. Some of the streets aren't even named yet. Right now they're basically white lines on a map. So we couldn't have the corner of unnamed street and unnamed street. So it's listed in here as basically other improvements. There's like 30 traffic signal projects will be included. We don't know specifically each and every single one that they would be at. There is some educated guesswork in terms of scoping out what the projects might be. We can look at ballpark costs for an individual traffic signal. Is that going to be right for every single specific one? No. But as a general rule, for a programming document for planning fees, it's close enough. The same thing will happen with some of the interchanges. We looked at $35 million for this one, $50 million for that one. Those are big differences, but in terms of the planning document, we get as close as we can moving forward with this level. In terms of the timing, right now the general plan is not yet approved, but it is far enough along where all of the land uses are set, all of the densities are set, so we know basically what the development is going to be. We want to start the process. It'll take about 8 months to complete this fee update. So we'll have, sometime between now and then, the general plan hopefully will be approved. Our project will be done and consistent with that. This will give staff the tool as we go forward to charge developers the correct fee for their property. The current program is also very limited in that it has one fee for commercial. We're hoping the new program will break that commercial use down into several other subcategories. It may talk about different zones within the city. Right now, pretty much everybody in the city pays the same fee. Doesn't matter when you're on the north side or the south side. You can make the argument that with the new sphere, it's so large, should people way on the extreme east side pay the same fee as people on the west side when they develop? So we'll be looking at different zones, development fees, to make it a much more fairer fee to contribute. In terms of the funding, all that money is currently in the current budget. AB 1600 requires that there be a nexus between the funds spent by projects for development and their cause and the growth. And so the original program included a component where the fees themselves will pay for the required updates every couple of years. So it's totally appropriate to use the development fee money to pay for the updates of the program.
Could you clarify that a little bit further? Because most of the projects that are listed are going to be future projects. For example, the 99 Mingo Road interchange. You know, that's so far out there, I can't imagine when we will actually be building that. And I'm wondering, the fees that we're going to be using to pay for this study are collected from current developers. So what's the nexus between, you know, they're paying for or helping to pay for a study for something that is so far out in the future, and why are we using those fees for that part of the study?
Because they were specifically, when the study was, the program was originally developed, though that use of funds was specifically included as a proper use of those funds. We don't know that some projects that are that will come up on the new general plan aren't any farther off now than Twin Cities Interchange was back when we developed the original program. At that point, everybody was a future developer. So anybody that comes into it, these programs are pretty self-perpetuating until you finish every single improvement. By the time we get to the next stage, there'll be several updates. This fee is not going to stay, the program won't stay the same between now and 2030. As, you know, some 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, we'll have to go back and do other updates. As far as the fee, it's an ongoing development pays for itself as a whole, not any individual developer pays their share. And the end result is more than likely the fees for not only people in the new sphere area, but also within the current city limits could go down.
Did you want to add something, Marty?
Sure. Mr. Mayor and City Council, my name is Marty. You know, I am involved in preparing the scope, and Greg has done an excellent job in explaining. And the last point that Greg made is the issue is we're going to be adding much development area to the fee program. So we have overlapping improvements that will benefit not only the new area but the existing area. So there is benefit to the existing development community in the city to include other development that will help pay for those overlapping improvements. Improvements that have long been in Twin Cities is an excellent example. Marengo Road. Those widening improvements, they're all in the existing program, but now there's going to be other people paying for it, and I think that that's a benefit to the future developers in the expanded city limits. So there is overall benefit. It is allowed within AB 1600 or Government Code 66,000 to expand as the city expands and use those funds to update properly the existing fee programs. And again, what Greg said was that because we are adding new development areas and spreading the cost of some of the existing improvements to a relatively limited net remaining development potential in your existing city limits, it is not necessarily guaranteed that the fees to those existing development areas within the city are going to go up. They may in fact go down. There's no guarantees here, but certainly there's going to be a spread. There's going to be a respreading of traffic that in fact that the improvement costs could in fact be slightly reduced. The other thing that our program does is beyond the traffic is we're also updating the fees. So your other government facilities can also, as they have expansion requirements, those will be associated to the expanded area. So the City Hall, any of the municipal surface facilities that you have that are going to be required to support the expanded area is also included in this program, and it's just required at this time. Otherwise, if there's a lag, then future development could occur without a clear definition of what their costs might be. And the development community itself tends to appreciate having what their potential costs are, because there are fees that need to be paid. If we can identify what they are, whether they like them or not, they can perform them, and through this process there'll be public input opportunities, so everybody will be heard as to, and also a part of our scope, we will clearly identify comparative fees that are in the Central Valley, so you can see what your fee costs are relative to other communities. So all that information will be disclosed for everybody. There'll be plenty of opportunities for the public to be involved in the process as well.
Specifically, one project that I had in mind was the Carilion extension to the Mingo interchange. And are we definite on where that's going to occur? I know it's going to be cutting through some property and not following the property lines, and it seems like we're not sure about that location or that project at this time, and so I'm wondering how you're going to be able to come up with a fee to cover that.
Again, Greg indicated that this is a planning level evaluation. We will come up with an alignment that we will say from a planning level will likely be an alignment between Carilion and Twin Cities up to the Mingo Road interchange and back down around again. All of these are little dash lines. We are not intending to come up with specific plan lines for each of those roads from an engineering perspective, but we will come up with enough information and that will be presented to you in terms of where the likely alignment will be in enough detail that we can come up with a cross-section of what that road would look like and the relative distance, so we can come up with a planning level cost estimate to be included in the FEED program. Again, we're not down to the last dollar as to what the cost of the improvements are, but we will be in the order of magnitude of what that cost might be for FEED purposes, so we can start collecting money that will be in the order of magnitude of what those costs might be. And so, again, we're not going to have that specific alignment tied down to the inch, but we will have enough information to provide a reasonable cost estimate.
At what point do you see us doing that, locating that alignment?
That may be more of the city.
It's more of a planning, I think, issue. Most likely the plan, is at the specific plan levels when you would identify specific alignments.
So I guess what I'm hearing you say is this is just sort of a beginning, and these fees will not be set in stone. Once you come back with a study, we'll be able to have more input and review it.
That's not entirely. We'll come back to council with draft, with workshops, but the end result the intent would be that council would adopt a fixed set of fees. That would be the development fees from that point forward until subsequent adoption, like what happened back in 2006. We brought it forward to council with recommendations for a new fee. Those fees have been in existence since 2006. We didn't do a fee update last year. But what happened after 2009, when we bring this back to you in, say, 8 months, we'd adopt a fee. We would then probably wait either a year or maybe even 2 years, then bring the program back, and we would update any projects. If we made a small shift in the road or a shift in a project that made enough sense to go back and change the cost estimate, then we would update the cost in terms of the program. So that would not happen until we update it on a regular basis. No more often than yearly, perhaps every 2 years.
Okay. Any questions?
Go ahead. You got a comment?
Through staff to Marty. First, Marty, good to see you. I was most interested in 2.5, the phasing part of the scope of work, and to use an area, the notch as we've come to call it. Do you anticipate in the phasing that you will phase it in those type, in other words, if we were going to develop the notch, which is not likely that it has to be done all at one time, but if it were, I mean, how are you going to create the phases you're intending to look at? Because that would seem important to me.
again, we would be working with staff in terms of looking at the phasing and where the likely development potential will be, and then we'll be calling out where the dollars most likely will be spent. Right now, we're spending it on focused on the Central Galt interchange.
Right.
And I agree, the notch which would provide in the easterly connection onto Marengo and the extension of Carillion are key connecting elements from the Central Galt interchange out to Marengo and Cimarron and Carillion. So, you know, it is a logical step. This is the task that will actually define what not only those improvements might be in terms of what might be phased next, but subsequent to that in terms of what we might be looking at further east beyond Marengo towards Cherokee, as well as looking north in those areas as well. So we would try to come up with a reasonable phasing program. So when we looked at dollars collected relative to a growth rate or a development rate within the city over a 20-year period of time, we would have a reasonable idea of what kind of dollars would be collected and what type of improvements might come online at specific times. By doing that, that'll also help us if development gets a little ahead of the dollars we have available. There is the potential for looking at reimbursement and saying, you know, we weren't planning to do that improvement until such and such a time, but we can reimburse by, you know, a date specific in that phasing program. There's many different options that we have once we develop a reasonable phasing program around where development occurs and the pace that it occurs.
Okay, because my comment would be to council and staff is I'd support tonight's motion, but I'd like to know if we could get an early report on the intended phasing so that we don't get the study all done and then have issues that, well, that wasn't the phasing I anticipated, or just a look at it. We don't need a big formal report, I think. Just give us some idea of what the intended phasing the report will be based around. As I say, to me, the notch would be one, the 99 corridor would be one, and, you know, from there, you can go wherever you want. But I'd rather see that than be 8 months down the road, get the report, and then go, oh, man, I thought you were going to phase it like this, so.
Well, Councilman, I think what they're going to have to do is take the general plan as it's designed and try and anticipate as many of those as they can, and then show us how they would phase it out to complete development. And so if there's a backbone road needed to go from north to south, they'll have to show it in every direction that's in that general plan update.
Okay, and then I think to mirror probably some of the things Councilmember Payne commented on, and Marty, you probably remember from 2 years ago, I had some issues on the list, if you will, and I've still got concerns about the general plan in total and how the whole thing will be financed and if it can be bonded. You've heard all those concerns. So just when this comes back to us to look at, if as much as you can define what the list consists of, and I know you're trying to be as comprehensive as possible, and yet we realize you can't get it down to the dollar, but the Marengo interchange for me would be quite a ways down the list of probably either both needed and or afforded. Whereas as opposed to where obviously Twin Cities, you know, we could have used it 10 years ago. So just so we can see it kind of in those ways, and again, it might be beneficial to get and when you folks think it's ready for us to look at a rough draft, I'll call it, to talk about it so we don't get so finalized. If the first time we see it, you're so finalized, we have a lot of extra staff time to back up or redo it. Just give us a work in progress.
Well, I agree, but the issue I think that they have to deal with and that you would want them to deal with is if and when development comes back, even if it's a long term and it's in the second or third phase, you will want to have that in there so that everybody helps participate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like I say, there's no issue there.
The scope of work includes several meetings and their presentations. We could certainly make one of those a presentation at that level to council. Here's where we're at, and provide input from both the council and the public.
Okay, and I know you can't promise anything, but I was one of the folks in 2006 who did not vote to go as high in the fees for commercial for two reasons. One, we were trying to get sales tax revenue and attract businesses, And second, we did believe once the study was finally done, that those fees would have been set too high if we'd have done it at that time. So I hope it turns out to be that way.
We'll find out, but with the level of, with the direction of the new general plan, there's strong likelihood that would happen.
Just a brief comment. Daryl kind of covered all of my issues already. I had a call this morning, Greg, wanting to know why something like this wouldn't be required to go out to bid. So just a brief explanation.
According to our purchasing policy, for consultants, we typically would try to get a competitive proposal. In this particular case, because of Omni-Means' experience in preparing not only the original plan but all the updates, their depth of knowledge, their history of working with the city, we felt it would be extremely difficult to bring a new consultant on board or try to share what we want with several consultants to narrow it down to pick a new consultant and give them the history that Marty brings with him to start. We found it's much better, much more expedient. The fee that we've looked over the proposal, we've cut it quite a bit. Marty's worked with us to keep the fee very low and reasonable. I think it's a good thing. Once we're in with a consultant, we like the work, does a really good product, record of great service, uniquely qualified. It's obvious that we go with him to do the final work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ready.
Okay. No comment?
Okay.
Is there a motion or further discussion?
Yeah.
Sure.
I would move that we approve this, and I appreciate the thorough explanation. It's much more clear where you were going with this. Also, we know that we do have the opportunity to review it before it gets finalized, so I would move to approve.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Further discussion? If none, call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now, we have also information consent. We have number 1, 2, and 3, and
7.
We're gonna, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve the remainder of the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? None. Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Read that item, we're moving up.
Yeah, what item we're going to move up? I'm going to ask City Clerk to read it, please.
Okay, we're moving up item number N7, comments by city council members under Vice Mayor Payne's comments, regulations limiting the total amount of time allocated for public comments.
And we have public comment.
You want me to go with it first?
Sure.
Yeah, and I do have public comment.
Okay, I just want to make sure we had a couple. Go ahead, Councilman.
Our procedures for our meetings have not been reviewed in several years. So I was hoping that it would be more than just the one item that I was proposing, and that is to look at the time that each individual has to speak. If you look in the packet, it even has the wrong time that we're starting. It says we're starting at 7:30, and I had to reassure Greg and the staff that I wasn't proposing that we start the meeting later, because my ultimate goal is when our meetings go till 12 and 1 o'clock in the morning, I don't feel like the majority of us can function as well in making decisions. I feel like it also is unfair to some of the citizens who aren't willing to stay here that late to give their input and to hear what's said. I'm also concerned with the staff time that is spent. Our staff is required to sit through these meetings, whether a lot of times they have nothing on the agenda. There was a survey done of many cities, I don't know, about 50, Liz, was on that list?
Or more.
Or more. And the majority of the cities do limit the time for an individual to speak to 3 minutes. Now, if they're representing a group or several people or an organization, then they have the opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. I think, as was illustrated tonight with Mrs. Gross, when you have quite a bit that you want to have covered, that you do have the opportunity to do that. It gives the staff time to research whatever your questions are and come back and report them. We definitely do not want to restrict anyone from being able to get up and speak. It's just, I think if you look at the overall picture of our meetings that have gone so late, that we might consider doing as other cities have done, including our school board, and limit the time per person to 3 minutes, with 5 minutes for someone representing a group or an organization. I was also wanting to consider that if our meetings are going to go past 11, and I don't think it's covered in this information that we have, that we only go an additional 30 minutes to make a decision, or else to continue it to the next meeting. Again, my goal is to cover what we need to cover while we're still in our best frame of mind, and also give the, especially the senior citizens that like to get to bed early, an opportunity to stay for the entire meeting. So I put this to the council for their consideration.
Okay, thank you. Comments from council, or do you want to hear from the public? There's 3 or 4 people, or 2 or 3 people want to speak. Your pleasure. Public? You want to hear from the public?
Yeah.
Sure, I agree. Okay.
Okay, Rick Walters.
Good evening, my name is Rick Walters and I live in the city of Galt. My following statement indicates a change is needed for Galt. One truth is obvious. Our newly formed Delta Greens Galt City Council / PAC, or as some members of our community call them, the DGGCCPs, must change at the next election to a more cost-conscious council that should be working for the people of Galt, not the pockets of the city, special interest groups, or the spending habits of a small city wanting to be a big city. The 3 DGGCCPs take the approach that what you don't know won't hurt you, try to limit public input, set guiding principles for interaction between council members that enhances their agenda, limit questions or statements they feel are redundant, and reduce public comment time. This newly formed Delta Greens Galt City Council / PAC consists of the following: Payne, Shelton, and Clare. In time, this newly formed DGGCCP will show their true colors and arrogance as time goes by, when their voting record is presented to the public for review. In my opinion, the people of Galt made a very, very big mistake at our last election. This mistake will be higher city costs for everyone: a larger city government, developments that ignore core planning principles, a general plan that will be delayed, utility rates that keep rising, and a water meter program and fee which will cost the citizens of Galt a lot of money. The problem that I have with this newly formed DGGCCP is that I can't tell the difference between the Galt City Council and the PAC members. The question I have is, who's really in charge? Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Dan Jimenez. Jerry, you're after Mr. Jimenez.
Dan Jimenez, and I live in the city. After looking at tonight's agenda, I figured that this might be the very last time I will be able to use 5 minutes for public comment. That's because after tonight, I fear that this privilege that has worked very well will probably be taken away from the citizens of this town. Our precious 5 minutes will probably be cut down to 3 minutes or less, depending on how the council members that run this council want to do. Now, why do I speculate this might happen? Simply reading what Councilwoman Payne put down here, regulations limiting the total amount of time allocated for public comment, recommendations that the city council take action deemed as appropriate. That statement speaks volumes of what they want to do. I can only speculate why this issue was brought forward at this time. And I have a couple examples, I feel, why this was brought up. One, lately a council member's feet was held to the fire by public statements made. Two, a very controversial presentation that wasn't an active project anymore was reintroduced by Councilwoman Payne. Three, this presentation started a very spirited criticism of those council members, and this criticism really bruised their egos. Citizens coming up here and telling them that building around the wastewater treatment plant was a bad idea. 5, a pre-annexation letter for the Delta Greens project. 6, at least 6 or more concerned citizens told them that this letter was also a bad idea. All this criticism did not sit well with some of the council members, mainly Payne, Claire, and Shelton. Clearly, they do not understand that they are public servants, and that good and bad feedback comes with the territory. If they do this, it would really be an injustice to the people who are not skilled or get nervous when speaking in public. They will not be able to make their points in 3 minutes or less. Councilwoman Payne will say that 3 minutes is more than ample time for citizens to make public comments. She also said that senior citizens want to get to bed early. Well, I'm a senior citizen, and I stay up as long as I can when there's an important issue, so you're mistaken in that. 3, she also claims that the agenda and the meeting goes on late into the evening and that they can't function. Well, maybe she should go to bed early. I don't know. But if that's the case, shorten your agenda. I mean, we've had meetings here where the agenda has been toned down, or there's been very little topics in there, and people leave relatively early. Don't stack your agenda. You'll get over this. And to be sure, a long-winded council member will come up with more reasons why her idea is a good one. Now, I'm going to make like a psychic and tell everyone here tonight that the 3 of them will vote at some time to cut down the amount of time. To be clear, that will be Payne, Claire, and Shelton who will vote to cut it down. A long time ago, when local governments and a long time ago, when local government was self-righteous and out of control, someone once said that the people deserve the politicians they vote into office. You know, the very sad part about this is they'll probably think it's a comment. But it's a compliment. Thank you.
Jerry Striblin?
Yes, my name is Jerry Sibling. I'm a long-time life resident of Galt. I strongly urge you not to cut the public's speaking time. The mayor is one in his comments to the Sentinel was, oh, we welcome your opinion. And now you want to cut it off? You'll let a developer or somebody up here with a plan come up here and do a promotion for hours. And your public, your people that voted you in can't speak. I have a hard time speaking. Next thing I know, the 5 minutes is gone. I haven't said half what I want to say. I mean, I'm not gifted in stepping up in front of people and remembering everything I wanted to get across. I think it's definitely a bad decision to cut your public now. And I urge you, don't even think about it. Because I don't believe in it. I don't think it should ever be done. You guys can all go out and talk as long as you want to somebody else, but when somebody wants to come in and talk to you, they can, oh, your 5 minutes is up. Oh, now it's going to be 3 minutes. No. That's a wrong thing. This is a small town, and we want to stay a small town. No matter what the big-time investors and developers think. This is a mistake. Please do not do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry.
That's all the speaker sheets I have.
Comments from council? Oh, I'm sorry. Al, did you want one other person or whoever?
I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. Al Baldwin, concerned citizen from Galt, and it is a community of character, and I think we're growing in that line. The speakers tonight were all negative against this, and my philosophy, and I've held it for a long time, is keep it short and simple. And we've been going through the last 2 years, maybe 4 years, maybe 6 years, where this podium has been a platform for whatever you want to speak on. And you got 5 minutes to do it, and they'll try and stretch it to 6 or 7 if they can. If you research what's coming up on the agenda, you may not need 5 minutes. You state your point, you state your facts, you state what you believe, and get out. But I think we've been rambling on and on for 6 years or more from this podium. Not only being, and I call it attacked at times, the people that have a legitimate question need to ask it. It needs to be short, it needs to be simple, it needs to be involved and researched. Unless you have something in the first few minutes when you first get up here about the community or something that's not on the agenda, you should have time to research what's on it. 3 minutes is plenty. If you think you need an extra minute, I would ask the council maybe beforehand, write it on your slip there, let them see it. I need an extra minute because I think it's going to be a little longer. You know, nobody likes change. And what I think you're trying to do is make it more conservative and brief so that you can get your point across and we can hear more speakers. Not that you want to hear the speakers longer that we have up here, but you can hear more speakers maybe by 3 minutes. And this, I believe, should be reflected in the way the council members are also speaking. Sometimes they speak a little long, and we get a little upset with it because you're speaking a lot longer than most of us others. So maybe there should be maybe a limit possibly of 2 minutes before you get kind of dinged, you know, before, because you guys can get out of line too a lot. But I do think change is needed. I think it's very positive. I think we're looking towards the future. They're reflecting on what it used to be, and the 3 members up here, the majority, are going to vote one way no matter what. Well, I remember last year and the year before, it was the same way. You can criticize this council. I can criticize the last council. I can criticize councils for years back. It's just the way they are, and you have to look for the positive things. And I mean, a council member can take, I think Darrell or maybe Andrew took a half an hour, 45 minutes giving a presentation. If I got up here and wanted to speak for half an hour, you would say, get out here. No, you can't, but you guys can do it. If it's something important, we can ask you beforehand, and you can give us your ideas of what we can do. You just have to work with the system and be as no, I don't know, short as you can be. And normally I would speak 5 minutes, but I'm only going to speak 3 now, so thank you.
Thank you, Al. Comments from council?
Yeah, a couple. Well, first, I always appreciate when someone predicts how I'm going to vote, so when I don't do it, then I can prove that they really don't know what the predictions are. And I wish I'd kept a list of all the things people told me I was going to do that I didn't end up doing. But I understand what Barbara's point is. And she and I and others serve on a variety of boards, and I'll use SACOG because it's probably the easiest, best example. SACOG meets in an established meeting for 3 hours. That's it. 9 to noon. 31 elected officials. There's only 5 of us. Talk about people talking and getting your work done. But SACOG has to get the work done of 6 counties and all the incorporated cities within it in that period of time. So they limit public comment, or they can't do the people's work. And while we have an obligation to the people who come to speak, we have an obligation to the other, in this case, 23,000 people who stayed home and entrusted us to get their work done. And they speak to us through, as I always say, where I'm standing getting applesauce on aisle 4 at the grocery store, or emails, or everything else. So I don't support shortening the speaking time, and some of the staff have been here long enough that they know I was the one standing at the podium and trying to get 5 minutes and 30 seconds out of the 5 minutes I was allowed, and was usually smart enough to ask a few questions to extend that. But it's an important dialogue. It's an important part of the process. So I understand why Barbara is asking it to be looked at, and I agree we probably need to review all our meeting procedures, not just that. But I don't see a need to shorten the 5 minutes. What I would do, from what we saw came in here, is, and again, we do it at SACOG, and we do it at the Air District Board and others, I would ask, say we're going to have a major whatever. Back, to use an example, when I first started coming to meetings, it was the proposal to bring the amphitheater to town. When you've got 30 people on one side, or in this case, there was probably 30 on both sides of it, I think it's fine to ask them, can you collectively pick half a dozen people to speak for you and make the points that you need to make, and see if they're willing to do that. Not to limit someone, just ask within your group of 30 people, pick 4 or 5 people, because to hear 28 people all say the same thing doesn't help the argument, and it just delays the meeting considerably. So that'd be my thoughts, but I don't see a need right now to limit. As I say, I enjoyed my 5 minutes at the podium for years before I ever sat up here, and maybe do it again after I step down from here. So that'd be my thoughts. But as I say, I do understand why you're asking to look at it. And sorry to your prediction.
Andrew?
Well, I can understand in some ways where Councilwoman Payne is going with this, but if the intent is really to shorten the length of the meetings so that more people will participate, limiting public comment just doesn't seem like the best option. Public comments in the beginning of the meeting gets out of the way pretty quickly. When we're here until 1 o'clock in the morning, we're not here until 1 o'clock in the morning listening to public comment. It's usually the other business that's piled up on the agenda. We have a lot of major issues that are coming before the City Council in the next year, including utility rate increases, the Walmart EIR, just lots of big decisions that are going to elicit strong opinions within the community. And I think that if we take the route of limiting public comment, we're sending the message that we don't really want to hear everything that you have to say. And I don't think now's the time to be sending that message. As for the late meetings, you know, this is just something that I think comes with the territory. I think all of us knew what we were getting into when we ran for office. I probably wake up earlier than everyone that sits up here. I get up for work at 4:45. It doesn't matter if we leave here at 1:30 in the morning. I have an obligation to provide for my family, and I took this oath of office to serve the community, so I stay here until the meeting's over and I wake up the next day. It just comes with the territory. You know, limiting the amount of time that we spend discussing items, I really don't think does this whole process justice.
You mean you wake up the same day?
Right, same day. Thank you, Darrell. I just try to pretend it's the next day.
Is it?
Yep.
Okay. Well, a couple of things. I believe that the whole item, our city attorney, Steve, is currently reviewing all of this resolution, which is 2002, -104, which is the procedures for the city council conducting meetings. I recommend that we give him the time to review, to give us guidance and direction. I know this is several years. There are some just different items that have been changed time-wise, etc. I'd like to bring this back, you know, at a maybe next meeting or two. But I also feel that it is our responsibility as council members to, when we have controversial items, and that we hold and conduct special meeting. So if we have, say, 2 or 3 items, it is staff's responsibility, which I've discussed with, and it is council's and the mayor's responsibility to pull those 2 or 3 items off and say, you know what we need to do? We need to move those to a special meeting, even if it's another special night. I think that we need to offer, which I attempted before when I was on council, and I believe some of the other council members have stated the same thing. I'll call it a town hall meeting, where, you know, you don't lynch us, but we can sit down and have coffee or tea. I mean, those are some of the things I think we need to offer. The other thing I believe, and I will continue as I did last time, is to offer to meet with individuals that have a difference of opinion with me. You know, whether it's coffee, I know that some people, when they come forward, I say, well, I'll turn it over to one of the staff members or one of the council members, or offer myself up, and not to put you off, you know, for like, you know, 5 or 6 months, okay? But, you know, would you be available at this time or that time, and we could sit and discuss it. That's my opinion on this. So, with that said, I see, I was going to ask the attorney something, but is there a time where you think you might be able to review that and bring it back, Steve?
Mr. Mayor, I'd recommend in the second meeting in February, if that'd be acceptable to council.
Is that concurrence with council members? Do you feel that way? Yeah. Because we want to make sure we're running meetings, you know, and I know that we all want to, you know, not be here till 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and neither does the audience want to be out there that late. You know, sometimes there are items that come before us that we think maybe we only have, that it is not controversial, that maybe we only have, you know, 3 or 4 people that are speaking, and, you know, we have like 25 people or 20 or whatever. So I can see both sides.
Mr. Mayor, let me make a general comment. I think,
Sure.
Sometimes people get mixed up on what public comment is. Public comment is basically for the citizens to bring up very briefly some issue that is not on the agenda that they may be concerned with.
Right.
It's not to bring up arguments about things that you're going to have during the meeting, because they still have the right to come up and say whatever they wish during that time. The problem that I've seen in my career is, though, is if you get competing forces and they want to use that time to battle back and forth, and we will sit here for a significant period of time and listen to the same thing over and over and over again. They would just say it briefly and then wait and get on with it. We could save a lot of time doing the city's business. The problem that staff has is we have a lot of very important things, and sometimes we don't get enough time to discuss it properly. When these meetings go very, very late, that some of these things should, they should receive more time than sometimes we're able to give on some of these issues.
Correct. Correct. I agree. You'll notice in this meeting and the meeting before that when individuals came to the podium, and then we'll move on, that council members did not interact into your conversations. Okay, and we were going to strive to continue to do that. I know that some of you are frustrated, and we're continually trying to run this as smooth as we can, because also you guys realize we have a lot of things we need to do, and we want to do it correctly. So those are some of the things that we'll come back in February, and we'll discuss it a little more. It's, I think, council members, any other comments from you? If not?
Do you need a motion?
It was more of direction and bring it back in the meeting in February, correct? Okay, thank you. council, staff, and members of the public. Thank you.
With that, then I'll move the balance of the consent calendar.
We already did that.
We did that.
We did that. You're pulling one of my steps, but that's okay.
Sure.
Now, we'll move back, I believe, to presentations that we have none. Communications, we have none. And then we have a couple of items that are on scheduled matters. I'll ask the city clerk to read those off, please.
Okay, scheduled matters number 1, resolution establishing and increasing fees for service in the planning division of the Community Development Department.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, back in August, staff brought forward a revised fee schedule for planning-related items at a public hearing. At that time, the city council asked staff to reevaluate 2 of the fees that were proposed or under consideration for change that evening. One was fees for appeal, and that would be fees for appeal to both the Planning Commission as well as the City Council. And the other one was for non-residential site plan review. As indicated in the staff report, the current fee for site plan review is $260. After looking at the amount of time staff spends on this and what the cost is to the city, staff is recommending that that be increased to $1,900. That was the same number as last time. Staff spends approximately no less than 20 hours per project based on the costs associated with personnel, overhead, and the department's operation. That is the equivalent of approximately $1,900. Staff is also recommending that should the council wish to look at a method of phasing this in, I would recommend, as indicated in the report, that possibly you do an initial increase to $1,200 and then 6 months thereafter go to the full amount of $1,900. The second one was on appeals. The current fee is $304. What was proposed was $730, and that would be to both the commission as well as the council. Included in your staff report is an estimate of the time on the most recent appeal that the city held, and that was for the charter school. As you'll see, between the city attorney's office and city staff, it's estimated that we spent between $5,300 and $5,800 respectively in terms of cost to process those appeals. It should be noted the city attorney's fees or charges on that were included in the contract and they were not separately billed, so it was part of the normal contract. With regard to the appeals, staff isn't recommending that you look at a full cost recovery because I believe that it could have the effect of dissuading the public from going through the appeals process. You don't have to make it a full cost recovery. That is why staff is recommending a nominal increase to the $730. In addition, the city council, or council member Vice Mayor Payne, asked today that I look at several other communities. Those were Elk Grove, Lodi, City of Sacramento, as well as Sacramento County for the same fees. In the city, for site plan review, which we're proposing at $1,900, Elk Grove charges for the same service $2,350. Lodi charges $1,875. City of Sacramento is $2,500. County of Sacramento is $2,950. With regard to appeals, we're currently at $304 and proposing $730. Elk Grove is $912 for Planning Commission, $2,088 to the City Council. Lodi is $300 for both. City of Sacramento was $1,000 to the Planning Commission, a little under $1,200 to the City Council. Sacramento County is $2,950 to the Planning Commission, as well as the Board of Supervisors. So each council member is given a copy of this memo as well. That concludes my report, and I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any comments from council before I open the public hearing?
I just have a couple. I want to thank you for doing that comparison. It was very helpful.
because to jump from $260 to $2,000, it looked like it was out of line. But I appreciate your getting that information for me. And I think it was important for the public to know as well how we compare to other cities, so I appreciate you doing that. I just have one question. Are we currently doing that site plan in-house, or are we sending that?
No, that is done in-house. That is planning, site plan reviews, not necessarily building plan check or anything like that. Those are done in-house.
Okay. Well, I think with the information that you've provided me, that's all the questions I have.
When was the last time we reviewed and adjusted these?
Most of these fees have not been adjusted since the late 80s, and a few were adjusted in the early 90s.
Okay. To Kurt or whoever can give me from a legal standpoint, if we were interested in crediting those projects that move forward, so to speak, if we believed we were getting revenue that would cover this cost through the project or something else, is that even an option to us? In other words, it's credited to plans that move forward versus plans that we went through all the process and nothing came of it? Does anyone ever do anything like that?
I'm not sure I follow.
You do a site plan, but nothing ever happens. They never do anything. You've expended the monies, nothing comes of it. There's no revenues created by the project that come back to the city.
The approval or entitlement is good for a period of 1 year. They can come back and reactivate after that period of time.
But what I'm saying is if they do move forward, let's say Rite Aid.
Okay.
Obviously, they're now building it. They're going to be in business. There's going to be property taxes paid. They paid a number of other fees, sales tax, blah, blah. Could you credit back this somehow as opposed to charging them or any portion of it for successfully moving forward? Could that also be an incentive to move forward as opposed to...
It's a little different because this is really a direct cost of service. Otherwise, it is the offset is to the general fund, and it is basically a hit to the general fund on an individual departmental basis. I mean, that would apply in every department then. We haven't done that. I don't know that anybody that has.
Okay. Well, the only reason I mean, again, I work in the manufacturing world, but we have what we call overhead, and we're there 5 days a week whether we do nothing until we don't have enough to do and lay people off. So many of the costs are there because we showed up for work that day and we're going to get paid a salary. So if during the day, for your 8 hours of pay, this is what you do, we look at that as costs that we would have incurred anyway. It's not unique to any one project, and if there were no projects, we'd have nothing to do. So I'm wondering if there's a way to look at it that way, so to speak.
Councilmember Claire, I think that one of the ways that you can always approach this type of service is, the city's not under an obligation to charge any processing fees. It's within the discretion of the council to cover all of those expenses out of your general fund revenues. But with the restrictions in revenues over the last many years, a lot of cities have gone towards a system where they charge those people that are receiving the services from the city. And so this is just a scenario where those people that are receiving those particular services, we compute the actual cost of providing that service, and that's what Kurt is proposing. I think if we got into a situation where we did kind of a balancing thing where there's a cost of service, but there's ultimately an amount of revenue that you're going to provide to the city by virtue of doing business here. I think that basically, if that were the scenario, that with any kind of commercial or industrial activity, we probably wouldn't charge, because in the long run, commercial and industrial activity brings tax revenue or business licensing fees into the city. So that would probably negate that cost of service. So it's within your discretion, but the more typical approach, as Kurt indicated, is to charge folks for these services that they come to our front counter and ask us to provide.
Yeah. No, I understand the philosophy of that. But I'm just thinking, in the economy we're in, I mean, it wasn't 2 years ago, we hired a consulting company to come and help us be better at economic development, how to compete within the region and all the other things. And I'm just thinking in terms of, let's say no one ever came in for a site plan, that would be a bad thing. So the fact that they do is a good thing. Now the question is, how do we get paid? And is it better to get paid through a fee, or is it better to get paid in helping them become a real project where they don't just pay the fee, they pay property taxes, generate sales tax perhaps, and other things. So I'm just looking at it from that standpoint.
But this fee, in the scope of a development, take Rite Aid. That entire complex was $260. That was the trailer sales, tractor sales, all of the buildings in between, Rite Aid. And I would venture to guess that we have probably spent somewhere in the neighborhood of close to 60 hours, if not more, just on that project. The amount of money here is insignificant even when it comes to a building permit. I think that it's important that you have, you know, an adequate and detailed review up front. In most cases, the fees that I've put forward really are not going to be cost recovery, but they're bringing them up to a point that in most all jurisdictions, as you can see from the comparisons, it's not out of line. We are
no, I have no argument.
Whack.
Yep, I have no argument with that. Okay.
I was just going to go ahead and kind of comment on what the attorney was saying. Was basically what was presented, or what is presented, is basically the maximum amount that we could charge for the cost of service provided. And whenever we do that cost analysis or the revenue analysis, we try to present what the maximum amount is. But certainly, as the attorney mentioned, is if council does not want to charge the full amount, then the subsidy would fall back on the general taxpayer, property taxes, sales tax, and other items. So what I think is being presented...
The only point I'd like to clarify is this isn't the maximum, this is the minimum.
Well, this was the amount that was previously presented, and then you went back in and did another workup on, based on council's comments at the last meeting. So that's what we look for in the department, is basically how do you justify the amount that you're proposing, and then kind of look at it as another option for council is, do you want to charge that amount or a lesser amount, knowing what that ceiling amount is, so.
Yeah, and again, to be clear, I fully support recovering the costs expended, especially if nothing ever came of it, because then you spend all that money for nothing. It was just, is there a better way to get the cost back through projects that move forward successfully?
Andrew.
Mr. Mayor?
Been patient.
Thank you. In regards to the site plan fee, I'm okay with moving ahead tonight with the $2,040 rather than phasing it in at $1,200 and then increasing it after 6 months. You know, it's a small price for an overall project. I don't want to get into a situation where John Q. taxpayer in the city of Galt is subsidizing development. I don't think, you know, the community expects us to be taking actions that would do that. In regards to the appeals fee, I'm comfortable with what you're proposing. I don't want to make it so that people feel like it's cost prohibitive to appeal a decision by the Planning Commission. It doesn't look like it gets anywhere close to cost neutral, but I think it walks that fine line that we need to walk in regards to the appeal fee. So if council's okay with that, that's what I'm going to be moving forward with tonight.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing. That doesn't work very well. Okay. Any comments from the public?
Sam.
Alan Parker, dear Galt. I hate to see the city raise the fees. You know, it seems like they always, they have a problem. The first thing they look is to raise fees, charge more taxes or something like that. One time, I'd like to see the city spend the time saying, how can we be more cost efficient? How can we run the planning department better? How can we run the building department better? You know, when you need that building department, if you're gonna run all the developers out of town, it's better to get rid of the building department. But I'm saying, I'm not picking on Curtis Muffler, but he's using old, used to you come to the city and say, I've got a little project here, and you got your figures down, it's gonna cost X number of dollars, 100% here. And the city, they put on their fees, and they put on other income that you gotta do. And you look down and say, oh, that's gonna cost me 110% of what I can afford, or what the project is right now. But you say, but maybe in a couple of years or 3 years, by the time it gets through the city, appreciation is 20–30%, so that'll take care of that 10% over. But now, if you go 110% over, your house may be only worth 90% of what you figured you could sell it for. So it's a new ballgame. We can't use the same old figures we used to use and say, hey, everything is going to be good. So I'd like to see the city one time, and I'd like to see the councilman up there, they say they don't want the taxpayers to pay more money. I'd like to see them sit up there and say, hey, maybe the city could be more cost efficient. Maybe we cut down on the cost. Maybe we're spending too much money. And before we ask for a raise, let's see if we can be more efficient and maybe cut a little bit here and there. Because I think I think sooner or later it's going to come to that. And the sooner it is, the better off the city's going to be. And thank you very much, and I ain't picking on the curve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay. I'll make a comment. I know it's tough. I know the budget's going to be tough. And I'm not in favor of increasing any fees at this time. I would like to, when we go over the budget, which is coming up in the near future, in just 3 or 4 weeks, I think we'll have a better grasp of what we need to do, or not need to do. So anyway, I'm not in favor of that tonight. I should have closed the open comments first, but because technically I was supposed to go to that podium and talk, but I'll close it now. Sorry about that. You're going to ask me to repeat that, are you? Okay, well, direction from council is the direction from staff, unless there's other further discussion.
I did want to make one more point.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to keep in mind that in the coming months, we're going to be asking the ratepayers of this community to shoulder a utility rate increase. So I really don't want the city council to send the message that it's okay to raise utility fees for residents, but it's not okay to raise development impact fees for developers. So I really hope that tonight we move forward with these fee increases.
Okay.
If I could make a motion to bridge the comments I've heard tonight, I would move we accept staff's recommendation but do the phase 1 increase tonight. Then after the mayor's request to see the numbers we'll see in a few weeks, bring it back and decide if we want to go the rest of the way or not. As I say, I understand the need to replace the fees, and I don't want those people who aren't causing the fees to bear that cost.
That's true.
But as I say tonight, I'm not ready to go the full amount that was requested, but I'm open to it after we see some other budget numbers. So that'd be my motion.
So just to clarify, your motion would set the $1,200 site plan fee immediately,
correct,
followed by a potential increase when we review the budget.
Correct.
Okay, which we were, at that point, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
It's okay. Go ahead.
That we were going to bring this back in, what was it, 6 months or before anyway. But what your proposal is after we review the budget. Okay.
I'll second that motion.
I can live with that.
Okay. We have a clarification.
Mr. Mayor, just a point of clarification. The resolution that's before you indicates on site plan review $1,200 and then effective July 21/09, 2040. Is the motion to strike that second line or to allow the increase to go into effect?
We would not approve tonight that amount on that date. we would revisit that, I assume before that date, but tonight we're not approving that it'll just happen automatically.
Would that have to come back as an amend the resolution if that's what we did, or a second resolution?
What I understand the motion then is to approve the resolution as amended to delete that last line, making the 2040 effective on July 21st.
Correct.
And so then unless the council takes further action after tonight, then the site plan review fee would remain at $1,200.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion's been made, first and seconded. Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye. Aye. Okay, next item. If you would read the...
Okay, number 2, under public hearings, Measure A, Development Impact Fee.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Item before you at this time is the Measure A Development Impact Fee. The Council may recall, back in 2004, voters in Sacramento County approved the extension of the Measure A sales tax increase, a half-cent sales tax for transportation improvements throughout Sacramento County. As part of that ballot measure, there was also a requirement that cities and the county in Sacramento County adopt or approve a new development impact fee associated with Measure A. That those fees combined with the sales tax would go towards funding all of the projects included in the Measure A expenditure plan, which has been approved by the STA board. Back in June 2006, the STA board, who was in charge of administering the Measure A program, adopted the Sacramento County Transportation Fee Program Nexus Study and setting the rates effective April 1, 2009, based on $1,000 per single family unit fee. And there's a list of other fees associated with multifamily, senior housing, retail, office, commercial, and so forth, all based off the base of $1,000 per single family unit. For the city, Measure A contributes in a couple different ways. One is there's approximately $11.5 million from Measure A that will go towards the completion of the Central Galt interchange. In addition, we get 1% from the sales tax for ongoing street, road, overlays and other improvements in the city's CIP program. So we stand to gain significantly from not only the sales tax portion, but the impact fee component of the program. Back in July of 2006, the Galt City Council adopted resolution number 2006-99, acknowledging the city's obligation to oppose the transportation impact fee program by April 1, 2009. What you have before you are all the implementing documents, the operating protocols, the ordinance resolution establishing the fee, allow the city to then establish this Measure A mitigation impact fee for transportation projects in the county. The same obligation exists for all cities within the county, as well as the county at the exact same fee rate across all cities. The money then gets pooled with STA and gets distributed back out to cities based on that expenditure plan. Staff's recommendation, that's actually 4 recommendations tonight. One is to introduce the ordinance, read by title only, waive the first reading of the ordinance, adding Chapter 15.21 to the Galt Municipal Code to establish the Development Impact Fee Measure A Transportation Improvement Program, adopt a resolution approving the Nexus Study, establishing the amount of the fees and providing for other matters relative to Measure A. Item number 3 is to adopt the resolution approving the agreement on operating protocols for the new Measure A program. Included in that is an administration fee charged by the city of 2% on the fee that will cover our costs in collecting the fee, administering it, doing the accounting necessary, and remitting those fees back to STA. Again, that's something that's consistent among cities throughout Sacramento County. Finally, adopt a resolution increasing revenue estimates by $3,000 and appropriating $2940 from Fund 29 Measure A for the current year. Those are the estimated building permits between April 1 and the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. Be happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Any questions from council?
I have a question.
I have a quick comment. I was Barbara Payne now represents our city on STA, but I was a representative back when this was established, and this took countless meetings with the public and the staff and the board, and I had issues with $1,000 per home fee, which I voiced at the time. But what we did get in that, and those of you who are familiar with some of the, what I consider to be injustice or inconsistency between some county fees and what cities charge, we did get the county to adopt a plan that would be the same as what cities would be within. And so after a lot of fighting, both Donna Tolley and I were on the subcommittee for designing the funding. As a result of that, we got an extra $18 million of funding for our city. This went to the voters. We got a 68% approval based on what we're doing tonight. So I will move staff's recommendation in the order of the 4 items were read into the record by our assistant city manager. And as I say, I had some issues with it when it was drafted, but I think it's the right thing to do. And it's what the voters approved, as I say, overwhelmingly, and keeping their commitment to them, I think it's important we adopt it.
Second. Before we do that, we have to open. If you'll hold those are thoughts right now, right?
They are.
Okay. Open the public hearing. Any comments from any members, staff, or the public? If there are none, close the public hearing.
Now, if I may make those thoughts a formal motion.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? None? We'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay, next item is ordinances.
Okay, an ordinance implementing the Digital Infrastructure and Video Competition Act of 2006.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The item before you this evening is the result of a new state law that was adopted in 2006. As the council is aware, Galt is a member of the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission, and through that commission, the city with the other cities within the county have been regulating the local franchises by cable providers within the community. What the state did in 2006 was to pass a law that allowed for cable companies to get statewide franchises that took precedence over local franchises. And with limited exceptions, those state franchisees come under the jurisdiction of the Public Utility Commission. The few remaining items that the local jurisdictions are allowed to regulate relate to, one, the collection of a franchise fee, the requirement to provide public education and government channels, and to adopt and to also collect a fee related to those public educational and government channels. What this ordinance does before you this evening is allow the city to implement those limited areas where you can in fact regulate statewide franchisees, and then also to pass that power on to the Cable Commission, which will continue to be your agent for implementing those particular provisions. AT&T has in fact received a statewide franchise. I know they're not operating right now within the city of Galt. They are operating within other areas within the county. I don't believe that Comcast has received a statewide franchise yet, but basically everybody is teeing up, and that will in short time be the only franchises that are out there, and they will essentially wipe out any of the local franchises that currently exist. Be happy to respond to any questions you have.
Any questions from council?
I have none.
None? 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 Is there a motion?
Move to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded. Further discussion? None? We'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Regular calendar, Public Works Department.
Okay, award of bid for the construction of arsenic treatment improvements at city water facilities.
Good evening. We bring before the council actually 6 recommendations. First is that the council adopts a resolution approving the filing of a secret categorical exemption for the project. We're asking that you authorize the city manager to do 3 things. The first is to award a contract for construction of the arsenic treatment improvements to Tidelands Construction in the amount of $1,660,133. Asking that you authorize him to award a contract amendment for construction support services to Ecologic Engineering in the amount of $54,578. Lastly, we're asking you to authorize him to award a sole source contract to Tesco in the amount of $127,000 for SCADA programming and management. We're asking that you authorize me as the Director of Public Works to accept the completed improvements and issue the notice of completion. And lastly, we're asking that you reappropriate funds from current capital improvement projects and appropriate additional funding as included in your agenda report. A little bit of background. In January 2001, the Environmental Protection Agency lowered the maximum contaminant level for arsenic in drinking water from 50 parts per million to 10 parts per million. The state of California has recently followed suit and lowered the same standards. It's important to note that the actual quality and the arsenic level in our water did not change. It's no more unhealthy to drink now than it was then. Simply the acceptable standard was lowered by the federal and state governments. We did install arsenic treatment facilities in our most recently completed project at the Industrial Park Treatment Plant. Following the startup of that project, we discovered that we had substantial additional treatment requirements in order to meet the needs of the state. This is because of the specific water quality here in Galt. It's interesting to note that we'll have to remove arsenic to the same levels in our drinking water as in our wastewater. In December 2007, the council awarded a contract for engineering design services to Ecologic Consulting Engineers. This is to design the arsenic treatment improvements. As the first part of the scope of work, Ecologic completed pilot tests to confirm the treatment process prior to completing their final design and preparation of the actual bid documents. The original scope included 5 sites: Bumasi, Trujillo, Industrial, Gateway, and Quail Hollow. The Gateway was subsequently not included in the recommendation for award because we may not actually need treatment facilities based on reanalyzation of the water quality. And Quail Hollow, we've had some recent production problems with that well. It's been deemed not economical to spend the money for arsenic treatment. We may actually keep it as a backup well, though. Similar improvements will be needed at Golden Heights and Monterey Bay in conjunction with future projects. Getting back to the recommendations, the first one again is that the council approve the environmental determination. The city's planning department has prepared a secret notice of exemption for this project based on section 15301. This section is for minor alterations of existing public facilities. This involves negligible expansion and use for the addition of health protective measures. The second recommendation is the award of the construction contract itself. Bids were opened back in December of last year. The Gateway well was included as an additive alternate just to see what the relative expense would be for that well. We received 14 bids. The low bid varied from $1.66 million to a high of $3.05 million, depending upon which option or which additive alternate we looked at. A summary of all the bids was included in the agenda report. Staff recommends award of the contract to Tidelands Construction as specified for the base bid only without the additive alternate. The estimated start date for the project is late February 2009 with an estimated completion date of October 30th, also 2009. In addition to award of the construction contract, staff is recommending the award of 2 supplemental contracts. The first is actually a contract amendment for the construction support services with Ecologic. Their precise scope of services is included in your agenda packet. In general, they will provide pre-construction activities, schedule review, meetings and field visits, startup assistance, shop drawings, submittals, RFI and change order review, operation manual review, and record drawing preparation. The bulk of their time will be in the startup assistance. The proposed cost for their services is $54,578. This amount is actually within my authority as the director, but in terms of the overall project cost, I presume it was appropriate to bring it to council for continuity. The second supplemental contract is a sole source contract to Tesco for programming SCADA management systems. Back in July, the council authorized Tesco as a sole source provider for our wastewater system controls. In addition, Tesco was the contractor that completed the first phase of our SCADA improvements for enabling linking all of our water and wastewater systems. This gives TESCO a unique position of familiarity and experience in dealing with our systems, our philosophies, our management, and our programming relative to trying to make all these new improvements talk to each other. Based on this, we thought it was appropriate that we would want to have TESCO do the work on this new project. TESCO also makes hardware components, so we separated that part out and left the hardware components open to competitive bid. But we did feel it was in the city's best interest to have them provide the highly specialized technical programming work that we needed. We originally proposed to have TESCO provide these services through a subcontract with Ecologic. However, in order to lower the cost and reduce pass-through costs, we ultimately negotiated a separate contract and received almost a $30,000 savings to the overall project by entering into a contract directly with TESCO. TESCO's scope of work is also attached to your agenda report. Basically, they're going to be providing the communication hardware for the Primasi site. They'll also prepare and submit shop drawings and submittals. They'll do the PLC, SCADA, and OI design oversight programming. They'll do the SCADA configuration. They'll perform factory testing of the components from the manufacturer, and they will also prepare overall system control O&M manual preparation. We've looked at both the scopes of work from Ecologic and TESCO and believe that they're reasonable with the fee provided. The approved budget includes $1.271 million for the arsenic projects. Because of the increased cost to the project, the costs have gone significant based upon additional needs that we found out during the pilot testing. Based on that, there is additional funding needed for the project. The staff report includes these recommendations as far as transfer from other capital improvement projects and reappropriation. Staff is recommending that we transfer $300,000 from the standby generator project. We're asking that we transfer $150,000 from the water treatment plant installation project. In addition, we're looking for another appropriation of $100,000 from the water capital fund, $100,000 from the wastewater capital fund, and $115,014 from the water services fund. This would bring the project funding to total. These amounts do include a contingency of $150,000. If this is unspent, it will return back to the fund balances proportionately. In determining the recommended projects to transfer money from, we took a look at the CIP, current projects, anticipated needs, and made a prioritization. At a recent meeting, the council approved installation of a new deep well, test well at Cost Reservoir. That then allowed us to potentially defer the water treatment plant at that site until we find out whether that's actually going to be necessary. In addition, one of the new standby generators was to be at the Cost Reservoir, simply to power that new water treatment plant. We felt that since the project itself had been deferred, it was appropriate to defer both the standby generator and the water treatment plant for the time being until we find out what the actual new well is going to require. There's been some concern expressed over the deferring of these projects, particularly the generators. These generators that were included in the CIP are additional new generators that were intended to provide emergency backup power for new systems as part of the CIP. This is for pumps and water treatment plants that are not yet installed. So we're not detracting anything from our current system. We currently do have standby generators that can run the current facilities either in place permanently or as temporary mobile generators we can bring out in the case of emergency power outage. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
No, it's unfortunately money we have to spend. I'm just making my usual comment about the laws that come down from the federal government, and this is either one of the best things the federal government's ever done because they found out that the water we've drank for the last 70 years was hurting us, and now we're going to make it healthier, or the water we've been drinking for 70 years isn't hurting us all, and we're going to spend $1.6 million for nothing. But it's a law that was passed. EPA passed it down, and we have no obligation to do anything other than to comply with it. And as you said in your report, we can either take the arsenic out before it reaches the waste treatment plant or after, but either way, we have to remove it under those guidelines as well. I certainly support taking it out before we filter it through our bodies as opposed to after. So I'll support the motion, but as a person at least, and as a council member, I still continue to have some reservations if we're overreaching just because we can now measure whether the health benefits are really there or not. As I say, if they're there, this is the best money we're ever going to spend.
No comment.
No comment? Just a couple. If you live out in the county and you have a well, do they have to comply with the same requirements as far as...
Municipal water agencies must comply with this, so if there is a county water agency, a CSD or something like that, providing water for payment for customers, then yes, they do. If you're on your own well, I don't believe this applies.
And I think it would be really helpful if you just, as you explained to me earlier, the need for the ecological amended costs, and also refresh our memory on what SCADA, just a couple of sentences, what that's all about.
Ecologic Engineering was the firm that did the original arsenic design. They did the pilot testing, and they came up with the concept and the final process by which we're going to remove the arsenic from the system. They put together the final design plans, which we gave to the contractors to bid. It is not designed to the nth degree. There are a number of shop drawings, a number of different components that the contractor will be making submittals. We would like to have the engineers on board who have the specialized expertise of this particular product, this treatment process, to be able to assist us and my staff as to whether or not something is truly an approved equal. They look over the schedule to make sure that the contractor is doing things in the proper order, in the proper sequence. The contractors sometimes come up with additional methods or ways of doing something. They would take a look at that to make sure whatever the contractor is doing fits in the overall process. It reduces claims by the contractor. It increases the ability for the end product to work. The industrial park water treatment plant, the system worked for about 2 months and then stopped. And so we will have the engineer on board that will be participating in the startup to see if the process that we bring up, date and start actually continues working. They're on an on-call type basis, so they'll only be used as we need them on the project. The startup is the majority of where their costs are to look at the correct dosing of we have 3 different chemicals we're putting into the water. Requires certain dosing, certain mixing. They're going to assist us in determining what the final tweaking is of the system and what the feed rates are to have the appropriate system. They're also preparing as-built plans so we can document any changes that occurred during construction.
So you think the $54,000 that we're spending extra for them is well worth it?
I think that is well worth it. We work with them relative to the fee to reduce that quite a bit. They were very gracious in working with us to allow TESCO to contract directly with us. There's some benefits to doing it the other way, and they agreed to give up that markup to help us deliver the project and keep the cost down. So I believe the cost is very reasonable, yes.
And then on the SCADA, the $127,000 plus, what is that going to do for us?
The SCADA system is the overall control system. I don't remember what a SCADA. This is Mike Wilkins with Ecologic. It's some acquisition data and...
Sure. We wanted them to have a chance to speak tonight.
Okay.
SCADA stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition, and so it's the acronym for that. And what it actually does is takes the input from the instruments that are reading the process, and so it's supervisory control and data acquisition. So it gets the signals from the process and sends signals back out that controls the process, and then also relays that information to your central treatment plant or to your operators at, which I understand will be sometime in the future. But it really provides the control for the treatment plant. And
is it a computer system?
It is a computer system, and what I was going to say is almost each system is unique in the manner that it functions. As Greg said, Tesco's familiar with the city of Galt systems already, the programs that they're using now, the computer screens that function the way the operators want them to function, and I think it is important to maintain that continuity in your system for your operators.
Excuse me, it'll tell us if there's something wrong at any of those wells. Is that what it's about?
Yes.
Is it monitoring?
It takes a lot of the controls that used to be manual and makes them all electronic and remote. It links all the systems together. We have a control panel in the MSC building. We have a control panel at the water treatment plant. So one operator can stand at this panel. He can control ultimately every lift station, every pump station, well, and reservoir within the city from that one location, rather than having to drive back and forth to each one and manually turning the knobs or turning the buttons. It will send out alarms. When we get the hardware, it's electronics, but there's no programming. One of the things we decide is, okay, if something goes wrong, who does it call? We then will get with Tesco, Ecologic, ourselves, decide what is the dialing order. Does it call public works supervisor? Does it call police? Who's the secondary call outs? And all that's programmed. It's all custom done for each specific site.
Okay, thank you. I just think it's important for the public to know exactly what we're spending these thousands of dollars for. So, and I agree with what you're doing. I just felt like the public needed to know what it was about. So thank you for that. That's all my comments.
Okay. Any other comments? Nope.
I think we've done it. It's up to you.
I think I had all my questions answered before I talked to him before. So do we have a motion?
I so move.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? None? Call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry. We were expecting you to say aye a little faster. Okay, we'll adjourn to Redevelopment Agency. Roll call, please.
Board members Payne? Here. Claire?
Here.
Haynes? Meredith?
Here.
Shelton?
Here. Any public comment?
No speakers.
No speakers? Please. Okay, we have information consent agenda. If you could read those two items, please.
Sure. First item is approval of the redevelopment minutes of the meeting of January 6, 2009. And the second one is approval of the redevelopment agency warrant.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. No further discussion. Call for the vote.
Aye.
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 Aye. We will adjourn and reconvene to the Galt City Council. City Clerk's report. Sorry. Did I catch you off guard? City Clerk's report.
Oh.
Sorry.
Just a couple of reminders. Sorry about that. The Commission on Aging meeting on January 22nd at 5:15 in the California room over at Parks and Rec. On January 27th, the proposed utility rate adjustment public meeting in the Police Community Room at 6 p.m. On February 2nd, the Galt City Council Youth Committee at 6 p.m. in the City Hall Community Room, which brings us to our next City Council meeting.
Okay. Comments by staff?
Mr. Mayor, I didn't get to personally attend, but we've completed our second annual Winter Bird Festival. It filled up for all of the slots. There was a good crowd. Jennifer reports to me that they did well and that everyone seemed to have a good time. There were some people that had some kids that we had some problems controlling. We're going to have to work on that for the third annual Winter Bird Festival. But I think everyone had a good time.
So, I was wondering why he was looking at you and Jason. I don't know. You know, just...
He was looking at. He was looking at Jason and I because we both got to participate in that bus tour. And
okay.
Thankfully, there were some birds that were still left after the
live ones.
Although with a few less feathers.
After the kids wanted to scare them all off.
Any other comments by staff?
Just to add on to what Ted said, we got there about 9:30 at the Winter Bird Festival. There were a fair amount of people there, but when we got back from our tour after 12 o'clock, the place was just absolutely packed. And from speaking with Jennifer yesterday, it looks like once again it was self-sufficient, so there was no money out of the city's coffers to pay for it. So it looks like we've established a very positive event, and hopefully it'll move forward in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, thank you to the Sacramento Bee, who happened to do an article that once again was successful in filling every remaining spot in our tours. So.
Yeah.
Good. Did you have any other comments? We're just going to start on that side and come across, because Barbara is going to take the next 45 minutes. Polar's going to give her a bad time. 3 minutes per item. Did you have anything else, Andrew?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I did. I'm sorry.
Oh, now you're like Daryl.
We had a mobile home park issue meeting that was planned for next week. We pushed that back to February 5th now due to a scheduling conflict. So we will announce the venue prior to the city council meeting on February 3rd. There'll be a press release that goes out to the local newspapers.
Okay. Good. Daryl?
There was one more thing.
Let's go on.
I'm just kidding.
I know, because that's what Daryl said. Sorry. Councilman Blair?
No, I'm good. I guess the only thing I have to report is I took my new position at SACOG as vice chair officially and swore my oath to defend our nation, and I think I got all my words right. So.
Oh, okay. Vice Mayor.
3 minutes, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk fast.
Yeah, not per item. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Barbara.
I think I'm being picked upon.
Yes, you are.
Okay, one of the main things I wanted to report on was the quiet zone. We've had some interest from the citizens of Galt concerning the sound of the train whistles, and they see that our neighbors to the north, Elk Grove, has instituted a quiet zone, and so they want that in Galt. So Greg Halliday and I went to Elk Grove to find out the information about it. We spoke with Diane Nguyen, who's with Public Works in Elk Grove. She was very helpful. We got a lot of information. The main thing was that it's very expensive. However, they felt like it's been successful. It has reduced the noise down to 80%. They still have a little bit of noise. They did have one accident. I don't know if it was a fatality, but they did have one. So it's not foolproof, but it seems like the citizens in Elk Grove are pretty satisfied with it. Mr. Halliday did an extensive report on it, which I plan to get with the newspapers so that the citizens can be educated as to what the quiet zone is all about. Some of them seem to feel like we could write a letter to the railroad and say, we don't want you to toot your horns in our town, but it is much more complicated than that. We actually went and viewed some of the crossings in this quiet zone, and it is rather complicated. In some instances, they have to widen. In most instances, they have to widen the street to accommodate medians, as well as special crossing arms. We're hoping to take a look at maybe putting the cost of the study to do this on our capital improvement list. So if funds do become available in the future, if there's grants or money available from the government, we will be shovel ready, I think is the expression they use, which is something that will come up when we go over our capital improvement plans. Thank Greg Halliday for all his help with that. He did a very good job. My next item, Elliott Homes and DIA, the staff, Jason, met with, you didn't meet with that, no, it was the mayor. We started meeting with some of the developers to get their input. We met with the president or the CEO of the BIA. They didn't have much good news for us, but we did want to get the word out that we are interested in hearing from them in ways that we can improve our service and partner with them to ultimately build more revenue for our city. We also met with the movie theater developers, and Jason and Kurt was in on that meeting as well. We want them to know that we're open to suggestions on whatever we can do to try to make that happen, and hopefully they will come back with some ideas. Had a nice meeting with Boyce and Armando about the flea market, some ideas on enhancement, and Jason. You know, some of the things we thought, well, if we can't afford the great big billboard, maybe we can afford smaller billboard to advertise the flea market. I think Boyce even had the idea of maybe having an area for the children. Looking at Galt as another market, I think a lot of people have lived in Galt for a long time, and they forget the flea market's here. It's for outsiders, but I have to say, I was able to do my Christmas shopping at the flea market, and I thought, why aren't we promoting this as a place to shop? So that was really the goal for my meeting with the flea market is, you know, let's look at this local market and see if we can build that. I attended a REACH conference with Councilmember Haynes, which is sponsored by the Sierra Health Foundation. I attended the last Planning Commission meeting where the issue regarding the lady with the fence that needed to raise it. I went in support of staff's recommendation to make changes to the ordinance. The landowner was there, and she was very happy to now be able to raise her fence to 6-foot height. And I appreciate all the work that the staff did on that ordinance. Let's see, what else did we do? We met with the Family Life Church to try to find ways that we could help them complete their application. It was a very good meeting with Kurt and Jason and representatives from Family Life Church to find solutions to the problems. That was kind of the theme, and we hope that will be fruitful.
Yeah, that was you and I think about 8 of them.
Yeah, we were outnumbered, but it was a good meeting.
No, it was.
And I'm sorry that I forgot to mention your name. Let's see. Oh, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think I left off anything. I just wanted to say that I attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting where our Assistant City Manager provided the program. He did a very good job. Everybody felt positive when they left that chamber luncheon. He had information about the senior apartments, the Oddfellows building. It was just a really good meeting. We had a representative there from Senator Cox. We had the Lodi News media was there. So I think it was important that Jason attended and gave his report. Did a good job. I think I'm done. Do I have any time left?
No, actually you're out. It says 5 right there.
Okay, okay. I'm glad we didn't pass that ordinance, that change then.
Councilmember Haynes has something on every month. I'll ask the city clerk if you'd read that off, please.
Okay, he's highlighting Grid 23, which looks like it's Walnut Avenue, near Walnut Avenue and Carilion Boulevard. And it looks like the prevalent, well, burglary. That's what's happening in that area.
This is a monthly report we had. I don't know, the chief, if you had anything else to add or...
And stolen vehicles. That's pretty much the highlights from Grid 23.
Okay. Well, before we adjourn, I want to thank council members, staff, and you, the public, for us getting out on a record time. I hope this sets precedence. You know, 10 o'clock is real good. And just to remind everyone, Thursdays is my day in the office. I'm meeting currently with the department heads. It's been very refreshing, very rewarding. I appreciate it. Appreciate them taking the time. At a later date, I'm filled up for the month, but in February, I will offer up to the council members, and we can sit down and have a cup of coffee, you know, one-on-one. But I just wanted to remind everyone, if you have a question or a reason that you would like to meet with me or any of the council members, please feel free to give us a call through, you know, a direct line or through the clerk's office. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned at 9:07.
Don't sit on that, we need to break it.
Party's going to DC.